Welcome to r/Malicious Compliance, where a Karen wants to have her cake and eat it too. Our next Reddit post is from Sheet Mask Wine Baking. I'm a part-time home baker. I took it up while I'm studying from home during the pandemic, and it's basically a fundraiser for my charity since I can't do my monthly fundraiser bake sales on campus anymore. I'm also the only person selling baked goods in my entire area, so my items are very popular. Specifically, this one particular type of cake I make that people absolutely love. The other day, a lady called me, and she wanted to place an order for 1 pound of this particular cake. She said that she tried it at a friend's house, and she loved it, and she wanted it for her niece's birthday. I told her that I use metric measurements, so my cakes are actually 500 grams. And to be clear, 1 pound equals about 450 grams, so my cakes are actually bigger than 1 pound. She said that she wanted a 1 pound cake, so I dropped it because it was more or less the same thing. After I took the order and quoted the price to her, she started giving me more instructions. She said the birthday girl is 16 years old, so decorated according to a 16-year-old girl, which is super vague instructions. She also said to add such and such to the cake and write 4 different things on the cake. I explained to her that all these things included were not in the base price, and the things that she wanted would make the cake a lot heavier and pricier. She said, "Make it a 1 pound cake for the 1 pound cake price." Okay, I get the hint. You want a 1 pound cake with those specific customizations. So I made the cake just that. I removed some of the ganache and made thinner layers so I could incorporate her additions and still keep it at exactly 454 grams. No more, no less. The lady came to pick up the cake, and she went ballistic because I was trying to rob her in the name of charity. And the cake I made was in no way 1 pound because her friend's cake was bigger. I tried explaining to her why her friend's cake might have looked bigger and that this cake was exactly 1 pound like she wanted. She refused to listen and created a huge scene and said that she wanted a refund. So I brought my scale out and weighed the cake in front of her. 454 grams exactly. The lady saw the number and went, "Aha, I was right. You're trying to cheat me. It's 50 grams less." I said, "No, that's exactly 1 pound, like you wanted." I opened up Google Converter and showed her that 1 pound is exactly 454 grams, not 500. I opened up our conversation on my phone and showed her the message where I told her that I make 500 gram standard cakes, and she said she doesn't care, she wants 1 pound. She was a bit gobsmacked, and she said that I should have some professional courtesy and make it 500 grams, and that I'm trying to cheat her. I'd had it with her. I told her, "Ma'am, you said that you wanted exactly a 1 pound cake. You said it to me 4 times. So you can take this exactly 1 pound cake, or you can take your refund and leave. I can find other people who would want to buy this 1 pound cake." She took her 1 pound cake and left, saying that she would never buy anything from me again, and she would make sure to let others know it too. Later, her niece followed my page on Instagram and dropped me a message apologizing for her aunt. She said it was the best cake that she'd ever had, and she was sure to tell everyone about my bakery. So, the fact that this 16-year-old girl went out of her way to track down OP on Instagram and apologize makes me think that this aunt must have spent the entire birthday party complaining about this cake, instead of, celebrating her niece's birthday. And it's a sweet 16 birthday too, which is a huge milestone for young girls. And instead of enjoying her birthday party, this poor girl had to listen to her Karen aunt complain nonstop. Our next Reddit post is from Aussie Golden Doodle. I was working at this clothing store years ago which didn't offer a commission. It was the brand's first store in my area, and I stayed with them for about 2 years. They were pretty desperate too, because they hired me on the spot. Anyways, all the supervisors who I liked ended up quitting, and the remaining ones were just plain not nice. I was the youngest person on the team, and they always excluded me and bullied me. I guess because of jealousy, which I never understood, because even though I did get positive reviews from customers, we did not have sales commissions. I just liked to help and I liked fashion. I also lived nearby, so they would often call me in to cover for people. I was always flexible for them, but this one supervisor just had it out for me. My hours got cut, they were messing with my mental health, I needed a change. I applied to this other job, and I was quite sure that I got it. My plan was to book 2 weeks off of work around the time this start date would be. My supervisor didn't even want me to take time off, despite the fact that I hadn't taken time off in 2 years. Fast forward to the day before my 2-week vacation, I got the job. I show up at my old job when I'm not on shift and ask to speak with my supervisor. We talk, I quit. She was acting all happy that I was quitting, but I didn't care, I was over it. The supervisor made it clear that I was still required to work all my shifts for the next 2 weeks and I had better not slack off. I smiled at her, thanked her for acknowledging my work ethic, and then put my name tag and keys on her desk. She looked confused. I reminded her that I took 2 weeks off, so this is goodbye. I turned around and left. My mental health has been so much better without her, and the store is now closed permanently. Our next Reddit post is from Mumhana. A couple of summers ago, I took a part-time job as a server at a local restaurant. I already had a full-time job, so this was just for experience and to pick up some tip money on the side. The pub inside the restaurant had been closed for a few years after the old owner couldn't afford it anymore, so when the new owners picked it up and got it ready for opening again, the town was pretty excited. It's a bit of a town landmark, right in the middle of our main street. I applied as soon as I found out, and I ended up getting hired. I was one of the younger servers alongside a few older ones. Most of us were women, and the older servers really looked out for us unexperienced ones. Overall, the others on the team were really nice, save for a couple of nasty ones. My new boss, Gary, was, well, not as great. Gary's favorite saying was, "If you have time to lean, you have time to clean." He thought that if we took even a second to catch our breaths, he was losing money from us slacking off. On slow days, he would find menial, pointless tasks for us to complete. Wipe the bar counter, even though it had been wiped 3 times in the past half hour already. Reorganize the menus, even though they were already perfectly organized. Fill up more condiment cups, even though there's already 50 salsa cups ready to go. Stuff like that. The most tedious task, especially in the early months of summer, was sweeping the side alley that leads to the patio. There were these massive maple trees along the path, and they would drop leaves and seeds like crazy, especially on windy days. One afternoon in early June, there were only a handful of us working. It gets slow, and I get assigned the sweeping task. I sweep up the back alley as much as I can, but the wind is blowing and the trees just keep dumping more and more seeds onto the path. I do my best until a coworker calls me back inside to help serve tables. She didn't want me to miss out on tips, bless her. I seat the table, get their orders, and start entering them in. Just then, Gary storms up to me. "What are you doing?" "Entering table 15's order? Why?" "The side alley is a mess. I don't pay you to slack off." I swept up as much as I could before the table walked in. It's a really windy day. That's why it keeps getting full of leaves and seeds. You're more than welcome to check the compost bin for how much I actually did sweep up. "No, we do not finish things halfway here. You're going back out there and finishing your job. I want it to be spotless. The other waitress, Linda, can take table 15. Gary then switched table 15 from my account to Linda's account. Linda and I get along great. Linda told me, "I'll hang on to your share of the tips. Best not to make Gary angry." He really wants me to make it spotless. Does he know how impossible that is? I'd have to be out there all shift. That's when Linda gave me a smile and the light bulb turned on in my head. I still had 2 hours left in my shift, and it was going to be right into dinner rush. I grabbed the broom and dustpan and got to work. I would sweep up as much as I could, but every so often another strong breeze would come by, and hundreds of more helicopter seeds would flutter to the ground. I just kept going. At this point, it started to get busier inside the restaurant. A line began to form outside the door. Linda was taking care of my tables, but very soon it became clear that the service needed someone else to help. Linda let them know what was up, and most of them, who tolerated Gary at best and hated him at worst, understood. I kept on sweeping. Like Sisyphus in the boulder, the task was never ending. I scooped up pile after pile after pile of leaves and seeds, to no avail. After 45 minutes or so, the side door suddenly opened to reveal a red-faced Gary. "Why aren't you in there serving customers?" I just gesture at the alleyway. As if the gods themselves had heard the malicious compliance brewing, another strong breeze shook more seats into the partially cleared alley, right in front of Gary's face. The look on his face was priceless. He told me in a quieter voice to get back inside and start taking orders. I handed the broom off to him, and he began to sweep and sweep and sweep. The other servers and I had a good laugh about it inside, and I managed to make decent tips that night. Gary realized that he couldn't exactly fire me for following his orders perfectly, and ended up being more relaxed about the side alley. No one really cares about some leaves and seeds on the ground, so long as they're not obstructing anyone. On my next shift, I found a broken broom in the garbage. I'd like to think that that was the work of Gary, red in the face and exhausted from battling against Mother Nature. Down in the comments, I'm going to read this post from Historical Turn. Some say that if you listen closely when the wind blows, you can still hear Gary sweeping. Our next Reddit post is from Uchipinska. I worked for a major government contractor for a government agency. I'd risen up through the ranks because I have good technical knowledge, and I have a knack for seeing the big picture, which helps me see potential problems. I was very good at what I did. Many managers didn't like me because I pointed out problems, and I stated facts without regard for management politics. And I never sucked up. Some managers even gave one of my colleagues, Bob, a suck-up, credit for my work. Then, they desperately needed my technical expertise on a very large project worth over $10 million. I wrote most of the technical specifications, identifying risk areas and the consequences of bad procurement decisions. Bob dismissed my arguments as, "That's no big deal, and we can work around that." So management ignored me and ended up buying inadequate equipment. I was reassigned again, and Bob was given what should have been my job, which was a promotion and a big raise. My parting gift to the project managers was a detailed memo highlighting every technical problem that I foresaw and how it could have been avoided. It was a very long list of nearly 100 watch items, and they ended up hitting almost all of them. As usual, management ignored me. Due to company policy and excellent performance reviews, management couldn't fire me immediately. But I could tell that I was being set up for termination. I was assigned a job to work directly with the customer as a liaison, actually sitting on the customer site. Management figured that I would be irritating and distract the customer from the company's issues. In the meantime, I'd keep our company informed about what the customer was saying behind closed doors. And I was supposed to tell the customer what the management wanted me to say what was happening at the company. Management intended it to be a do-nothing job to keep me out of sight and out of mind. However, I don't do nothing jobs. I take my job seriously. But after a couple of months, management told me in no uncertain terms that I was not permitted to answer the customer's questions about what was going on inside the company on the project, and that I was not permitted to talk at internal company meetings where the customer's needs were being discussed. I was muzzled and set up for failure, or so they thought. Now comes the malicious compliance that ended with revenge. When the customer would ask me a question, my responses were pretty much like, "I am not permitted to tell you whether the project is significantly over budget," or "Management won't let me tell you whether or not the company is dropping design requirement for features A and B." I explicitly complied with the management's directive of not answering the customer's questions, but I slipped in enough hints in my non-answers that the customer knew where to look and what questions to ask. The customer also kept meeting minutes and recordings that reflected that I did not answer questions about the subject under discussion, which was technically the truth. This was very critical later. Eventually, management couldn't hide that the project was way late and way over budget, which didn't surprise the customer thanks to my hints. The customer ripped the company a new one in their periodic contract performance review. Note that on government contracts, it's extremely difficult to get a low performance score. My company got a very low performance score. It was ugly, and the company lost a lot of contract bonuses, which would have been a big part of profits and management bonuses. And Bob was under so much stress trying to solve the problems that I'd warned him about that he had a major heart attack, and he had to retire on medical disability at the age of 42. Naturally, management wanted me to be the scapegoat so they could fire me, but the customer liked how I worked, and they protected me with very careful language in the performance appraisals. Basically, that I was the only person in my company doing my job correctly. Upper management didn't dare fire me, or they'd anger the customer even more than they already had, possibly to the point of having the contract taken away for non-performance. One particularly nasty manager who really hated me had to give me a significant pay raise and bonus because of my work. The fallout from the review was bad enough that corporate headquarters did some management shuffling and a few of my antagonists were suddenly gone. My raise and promotion ended up not mattering because the customer hired me directly to work on the same project but on their side. This caused management to absolutely freak out because I knew all their dirty secrets and tricks. However, I never ratted on my former employer. I didn't have to. Thanks to my help, my new coworkers had already figured out where to focus their attention and what questions to ask to get past the company's BS. I complied strictly with the terms of quitting from that company and gave away no secrets after I left the company. One of the best parts was that during meetings, all I would have to do was put on an evil grin and my former managers would freak out, wondering if I was about to unearth one of their skeletons. I never did. I just liked watching them squirm. They got so paranoid about being caught trying to lie to the government that they were admitting bad news up front. Because of this, things got even worse for the company. They decided to try letting their legal hounds on me for violating company non-disclosure agreements. But the customer's meeting minutes proved that I hadn't disclosed anything. The contract was restructured to eliminate several blind spots the company had used to their advantage. The customer's oversight of the company rose significantly. Profit margins on their contract shrank. Several of the management's favorite employees were suddenly sending out resumes because their protection was disappearing. Even more managers retired or found other jobs. It was glorious to watch, doubly so because I let them do it to themselves. And I was extremely happy in my new job, where I still work today. That was rSlash and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.